Human Dreams and Speculative Machines. I found a project, and I hope you have all seen it in the Freedom Park, that kind of summarizes what art is doing in a very beautiful way. Art is providing new perspectives. Art is providing insights into things that you might not have ever thought of. Art and tech in special gives insight into also technological capabilities, possibilities, dreams, risks, and threats that are coming. And utilizing art with these technologies together brings that momentum of a really futuristic, sometimes, setting that is highly relevant for our society. The point why art and tech is growing in the recent years is actually, because think about of a sculptor. A sculptor would work with stone, right? And the sculptor would know his material inside out, and he would carve everything in, carve out whatever he wants to express with. Now in art and tech, technologies are your material. You have to know technologies inside out in order to find out the capability of that technology for your artistic expression. That is what we are talking today about when it comes to dreams. And I start with a short introduction of a bit of an audio, please, of the Ars Electronica. The Ars Electronica started as a festival for art, technology, and society. So the dream, if you want to say so, for Ars Electronica is to find the projects, to work with the people who are interested in art and technology corporations, but not for the sake of the art only, not for the sake of the technology, but for the sake of the society, of the individual recipient of the piece, but also as us, the society in general. I'm missing audio a bit. I hope audio works. The pre-Ars Electronica came to the family in '87. It's called the International Competition for Cyber Arts. And the call is open. So if it happens that you have a project that is interesting in that intersection and addresses a social, global, or local challenge, then it is the right piece to be entered to that competition. The website is open, just go there and you're guided through to fill up the application. Ars Electronica Center, the museum of Ars Electronica, the Museum of the Future, as we called it, was opened in 1996, and so was the laboratory, the Future Lab, that I'm directing since its founding. This is the city of Linz, roughly. Well, it's a city to Austrian standards. Standards in India, it would quote as a village, I guess. It's 200,000 citizens, so it's a very small city. But the art goes everywhere. All the institutions are participating in the festival, in the Ars Electronica. The cultural institutions, all the universities are working with us. Even the Catholic Tome is handing out the dome through us to do performances or exhibitions inside the dome. Here I have audio, or I should have. Please don't. Okay, so but we are going outside. We are going into the city as well. We don't hide in the institutions. We're going outside on the streets to meet everybody, to include as many as possible people in the discourse that we are running every year on this reflection of different artists that are coming by. And this is like thousands of artists. Well, 1,000 every year. And that is a tremendous, huge coming together. The artists meet the scientists, and we want to bring them together. But even more, we want the audience to meet the artists and the scientists. So the artists are always with their pieces. Whenever you visit the exhibition, you can engage with the artists, you can discuss with the artists, and learn and listen and think about the corresponding perspective. So here you see it outside on the street. This is the pre-Ars Electronica. The pre-Ars Electronica's Oscar, we call it the Golden Nika. Nika because Electronica. And this is given away in several categories every year. So this is the categories that we do. And they all need applications. So you apply for something that fits topically wise to where you are heading with your art piece. And then in each of the categories, 5 international jurors come together in 1 week. That's a fantastic week of having all those big minds in Linz at the Ars Electronica. And they are looking at the pieces of the entries. So you have to apply in order to be seen by the jury. And all the big gigs that you see on this list, they have applied. Like John Lasseter, the art director of Disney, meanwhile, he applied when he was still running Pixar. Peter Gabriel, with his sledgehammer back then in 1989, I think it was. Tim Berners-Lee, the inventor of the World Wide Web. Linus Torvald, who is the founder of the Linux system development, made it open source from the very beginning, got a Golden Nika. Neil Stephenson for framing the metaverse in 1992. Beat Dr. Chris Vetch. Then Wikipedia as institution, represented by Jimmy Wales back then. Creative Commons was there. Ruichi Sakamoto, Toshio Iwai, and many, many, many others. Assange, Julian Assange, got it for WikiLeaks in 2007. So this is a very, very successful, renowned prize. The Ars Electronica Future Lab is the think tank of the Ars Electronica, the R&D department, or as I like to say, the atelier laboratory of the Ars Electronica. And the Future Lab is functioning as a catalyst for our society, but also as an interface to partners. So when we work with partners, we integrate them into the festival, into the center, into our universe here at the Ars Electronica. Our projects are meant to be prototypic future scenarios somehow, where we try to ignite discourse about the meaning of that technology or that scientific development. We do this by scientific exploration, artistic expression, with always in the back of our minds, we're having the social impact. Why is it important? And this is, if you want to say so, that fields of our activities in the Future Lab. And if you want to say so, it's even the dreams of the lab or the dreams of the Ars Electronica. What we are aiming for is empowering people, participation, trying to get not only the artists on board or the scientists on board, try to get the entire city, if possible, on board. And it, from time to time, really happened. Tangible future visions. We want the future visions that are right in front of the door to be accessible by a broad public audience. We want to understand and give this understanding that we are all co-creating our future. Every decision that we make every day, everything that you decide on what apps you use on your mobile phone, what car you drive, what food you buy, every decision makes our future. It's not the big tech guys that does the things that they think. They just do the things they think they can sell. And it's on us to make the decision. It's us it's you who actually forms and creates the future. We do this with art and science, art and tech science. Digital humanism, another very important one. We all agree, at least in the democracies around the world, that humanism is a shared value, human rights, and etc., etc. In the digital world, that is not so sure. Those who create and develop and sell the digital world probably, well, for sure I can say, do not stick to 100% to these values. And this needs to be known, this needs to be discussed about. It's, again, us who decides. And from time to time also we try to generate novel cultural experience. In the team, and this is the team of the lab, it's 30 plus people, 38, from 7 nations at the time, with all different backgrounds. And that's the important thing, we even have more backgrounds than we have members. The reason is most of the members, or many of the members, do have 2 backgrounds. So for example, Ali Nikran, he studied piano in the Mozarteum in Salzburg, and after he has finished as a pianist, classical pianist, he went to the Johannes Kepler University in Linz studying AI engineering. And then he didn't get a job where both hearts could be fed. And that's how he found us. Or Anna. Anna, she started a physicist. She is a theoretical physicist, studied at the JKU, and because this didn't fill her totally up, she also studied education of art at the Arts University. She found us as well. And many, many others do have similar backgrounds. These is a selection of our partners. CERN, for example, this was a big change for us in our career. 16 years it took. I tried, not very successful, to bring up a paper to Nature. I was denied constantly for 16 years. But then we had the collaboration with CERN, and this was the academic stamp. And then for the following 3 years, every year there was an article from or about the Ars Electronica included. The MIT Media Lab is a strong collaborator, QT Brisbane, I don't need to read it to you. But what's almost more important are our corporate partners, because we are not a university. We are not getting public funding. There is public funding coming to Ars Electronica, but it's going to the center and to the festival, as these are the educational shoulders of the Ars Electronica. Future Lab is excluded, so we need to generate our income from partners in the world. And what projects are we doing in this case? Deep space, for example. Deep space was one. Audio's up. going to be a little bit silent presentation, nevertheless. Deep space is an infrastructure, huge projection-based infrastructure in 8K that we have started to build with an artistic motivation. We wanted art pieces to have the best possible environment to be presented in. That was the original intention, to build the deep space. But the deep space became very interesting also for all other disciplines. Engineering, medicine, art historian, to zoom into Bruegel's buildings, paintings. That is, you know, I don't know if Bruegel is known here as well, but it is most times miniature drawings, but you know, sometimes even with a single hair on the brush, drawing lines. So you can't see when you visit the museum because it's so small and you're 2 meters away. But diving in that 16 times 9 meters dimension where this millimeter figure becomes 3 meters in size is a totally different experience. Or the cinematic rendering. I'm running this through because I think that is a usage of technology that is very, very interesting. We run this in the deep space. These are recordings via MRI, magnetic resonance imagery, and CT, also computer tomography. Meaning this imagery are living patients. You look inside a living body in that dimension, in stereo means in 3D. That revolutionized the education of medicine, of the higher education of medicine. You even can have cuts and dive in through different tissues. And this is what it looks like at the university. That is the life. Here's Professor Fellner. He teaches anatomy at the Med Uni in Linz. Another project that was art originated was the Spaxels. The Spaxels were the first drone swarm lifting up in 2012. So this technology has been invented in Linz by the Ars Electronica Future Lab for an artistic outdoor event. And that was still no audio. That was the world premiere. That's what it looked like. And this went viral and we traveled around the globe and we're jumping in from Mexico to Japan and Australia and all over Europe. For 2 years, nobody was doing this from 2012 or 3 years to 2015. And meanwhile, and this is really a big success for a public entity as the Ars Electronica is, meanwhile, I looked it up last year, 120 companies are providing the service of drone swarms globally, worldwide, from Japan. No, well, never mind. That's a pity. What we tried to do as next was bringing the stars from the sky, so to speak, and bringing it into, there's a long story, I know, but it has a point at the end. That's why I'm describing it. So that what we did here is we lined out a virtual line, you know, represented by 3 dots in the real space. And I was actually touching a virtual line and manipulating it. And that was for the first time that a virtual object is existing in the real space and vice versa, so that you can manipulate real objects by manipulating virtual objects. And this is a break of the paradigm of Milgram and Kishon, or the taxonomy of mixed reality, which means on the one hand you have the real space. On the other hand, you have the virtual space, but we were on both at the same time. And we know that spaxels are no quantums, so we had to change the diagram and bring virtual and real into one spot, and founded this converged reality where virtual and real spaces meet and integrate. And that became very interesting. For the car industry. And because they were at this time working on autonomous cars. And they tried to understand, how will we understand those cars if there is no human in the car? How will the cars understand us? And is it necessary to create a new language for challenging this, or mastering this challenge, let's put it that way? And Mercedes-Benz hired us for a several years research contract on exactly this question, and the outcome was this car. This is the FO15, the first autonomous car that Mercedes has ever built. And what we are extremely proud of is Mercedes has shown this car for the first time at the Ars Electronica, at the main square, where the citizens of Linz could meet this car. This was the European premiere of the FO15, and you could see a lot of interest and a lot of really fundamental discussion. Like the Mercedes-Benz engineers, they were used to answer discussions of reporters or journalists that are coming, from mobility sector, or when you're on a show in Frankfurt or a show in the Genfer Automobilsalon, then of course you would meet other engineers with more or less the same way of talking, the same way of thinking. But one engineer told me, one Mercedes-Benz engineer standing next to the car, told me that a grandma was walking up with her grandchild. And she was kind of addressing him. And the most fundamental question of all was raised: please, could you explain to us what is it good for? And that makes him shaky, because was the first answer. This is not an answer that you have to give in your ecosphere, but of course, if you interact and engage with a public audience, with a so-called untrained audience, which is actually very trained in getting you to the point quickly, then it really matters. Technology is culture. And we form culture is shaping technology, the use and the existence, the functionality of the technology. But if we think about that technology is culture, then a lot of technological problems, like for example, digital transformation, should actually be seen as a cultural challenge rather than a technological challenge. It's a change management project that we have to do, a global change management project. Educating, informing, being open and honest about the one or the other technology. That's the only form that we can create this cultural transformation that is needed for it. Art is capable of facing these futures by simply sketching the futures. As the future began, a little bit of history also here. Leonardo da Vinci, and you might have seen images like this from the Codice sul Volvo degli Uccelli, which means the Codex of the Flight of Birds. This is done in 1505, a full book about the capability, different possibilities, how man would be able to fly. And it has been taken literally, some of his graphics, and it took 395 years until the first John K. Underwood in 1899 actually managed. This is derived from Leonardo's vision, 400 years, almost 400 years later. But it's not the end of the story. Even 500 years later, Yves Rossi, you might remember this image, in Dubai, did this fancy stunt with his wingsuit, maybe it's called. Nevertheless, it's the same idea, it's the same vision. It's this vision of having wings to fly through the sky. This is a slide, two slides actually, that I borrowed from Professor Hiroshi Ishii, from co-director of the MIT Media Lab, and he published this on his radical atoms. This is the notion in the industry and mostly also in our universities and academic field. This is the pyramid of technology needs and vision. So the technology is the broad basis that we have on which the consumer needs are heading on. And the cherry top of it is the vision up there. But that describes where does the money go. Almost everything goes into technology. A lot goes into market research to find out what are the needs. How can we use this technology to, I heard the word yesterday from Real Miller, colonize the future. How can we use this technology to colonize the future? And then the vision is just like somebody who dances on stage and gives a nice image to it. In reality, the lifespan of a vision is, as we have seen, way more than 100 years. The needs are changing every 10 years, he wrote in his paper a few years ago. I would say 2 years max, meanwhile. And technologies are changing every few months. Why putting all the money on this little part if something that could last for over 100 years easily is so important? Totally underfinanced. Art is also looking behind the curtain, having a critical thinking and playing with the technologies. And I'm showing this piece because it is extremely radical, extremely radical. It's called, this is Hundesprengung, that translates to something like dog explosion. Done by the Stadtwerkstatt, that's an arts collective from Linz, and it's an interactive TV program. Back then in 1992, interaction was very limited. So we had systems, in Europe at least at that time, that they were called dead. So you could call in, you vote for a number, and the machine in the receiving station counts what number is called more often. And then you have a graphic where you can say yes, no, or whatever. So that was a field of very, 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 very early interaction. But this forward-thinking arts group back then was questioning a fundamental challenge that we are facing before that and still are facing now. That is the shortcoming of an anonymous group of people. What they do, I'll show the video in a second. What they do is they present a dog and tell the people on TV, that was national TV, ORF, And also 4 hours of broadcast time. So it was not just like quickly done. That was a full evening show, ran until midnight, and midnight the decision was made. The dog was introduced, and the reporter says, now, ladies and gentlemen, everybody who is watching on TV, you have the chance to decide between living and death. We have our voting system, and the voting is open now. Call in for living or call in for death. The dog is equipped with dynamite and is laid on an empty parking slot in Linz. Watch the video.
Guten Abend, meine sehr geehrten Damen und Herren. Sie haben hier und jetzt die Möglichkeit, Richter über Leben oder Tod zu werden. Richter über Leben oder Tod dieses kleinen Hundes.
Here introduces the
Sie
dog.
können uns jetzt anrufen.
You can call in.
In genau 2
And he is
Minuten
living
fällt die
death.
Entscheidung. Da muss ich nicht sprechen. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
That was horribly radical. And Austria had a breakout on news, as you can imagine. But what it points out is that we as humans, and that is almost true in every election of the last few years, you can see, we think it's funny and to be destructive or cool, I don't know, and then we say, let's die. If this person, the very same person, would stand in front of a dog having 2 buttons, I'm sure he would never do this. But in an anonymous group, where nobody can see who was doing what, we tend to become animals. And that was 1992. The only interaction possible back then was, as I described, this telephone conversation. This was so early to address the problems that we have today in our social media. This is more than 30 years ago, talking about the essence of the challenge of being a human crowd, anonymous human crowd. That went crazy, as you can imagine, but for whatever reason, no sound. What he's saying that there is a lot of criticism coming in and explaining that this was all just video effects and there was no dog harmed and nothing died. But nevertheless, the project in its radicalism, I think, is super on point. And that's all about creating awareness. It's all about letting the people know what risk you are running into. It was way too early. Nobody really understood what the artist group was talking about back then. Another example, I'm showing this because of Michael Belitsky's fantastic idea of the intelligent postman, it would translate. The intelligent postman, you can see here in the image, that is a very early GPS receiver, right? And the setting was, whoa, really? Oh, okay. Okay, this was on GPS, and he was tracking also the postman, and what he addressed was you're not only helping yourself, but you become tracked. The technology, first time shown, mapped on a map, was done in this project, where the audience could see where the postman is walking around. Again, awareness on the critical aspects. And Gladys Mae West, I want to bring that up because she died just 5 days ago. She was, next to Albert Einstein, main responsible for inventing the mathematical model of the Earth, of the planet Earth, as a simulation in order for GPS to work. And it's fundaments that she has built up, and nobody knows her. She has only been recognized in 2018. She's never been recognized throughout her life. The fundaments that she has been producing with that mathematical model are the reason why we now still can have GPS support. That is based on Gladys, 95-year-old. I need to jump through because TerraVision is another project that I can't show the video. TerraVision was done in 1994, and it had all the functionality that Google Earth had 7 years later. This was an art piece. That was done by Art and Com, Joachim Sauter. He passed away a few years ago. 7 years prior to Google. You don't need the big tech gold from Silicon Valley. If you have the right idea and you have the right perspective, and if you have the guts to do what everybody says it's impossible, go for it. Go for it. You really can revolutionize the world. And by the way, he won a court against Google and get decent money. But I'm not telling it because of its economical strength. I'm telling this here because this shows how far art can go. Artists, they really know their material. They do know tech inside out. And they can squeeze as so hard that something what they imagine, vision, can really happen. I jump over the next projects because there's one that I really have to show, and that is this one that takes all the time. And then I'm done, it's the last project. Our visions are not limited to paper anymore, like Da Vinci. We have 3D printers, and every idea, plop, can just like appear in front of your eyes. We have all available technologies to do most of the things that you could dream of. Artists sometimes have to go even further, diving deep into technology, into science. And sometimes, because industry doesn't deliver what is needed, they build their own environment. Art makes vision come alive. Revivification. This is a very radical project, just recently, 2025, shown in Perth in Australia. A group of people run by Guy Benary and Nathan Thompson, mainly, they have collaborated with Alvin Lucier. Alvin Lucier, for those who don't know, is a very renowned composer, avant-garde composer. And he was utilizing brainwaves in his composition, sitting in an empty hall, having brainwaves, brain-computer interface devices connected to his brain, and was playing with the echo of the hall that he was playing in. So a very, very fundamental experimental spirit, Alvin Lucier. And I know that this video takes 6 minutes and we don't have audio. Okay, I try to do it from. That doesn't work anymore, for whatever reason. But imagine there's a beautiful sound coming into the scene. We all can imagine beautiful sounds, can't we? And the artist, Nathan, in this case, is explaining what happens here. This is the installation in the museum. And in that part here, we have a brain, an organoid, that is being created. This is what an organoid looks like. That is the start in the Petri dish. An organoid, to explain shortly, is an organ that grows from, a human organ that grows from stem cells. Stem cells years ago only were available by attacking unborn. Stem cells, meanwhile, can be derived from every blood donation. So they were working with Alvin. He was 85, but still, his experimental brain still working on his max. And they were discussing different projects that they could do together. And they spoke to him about, what if we take your stem cells, your blood, and create a Alvin Lucier brain. They have all the technology, they have all the equipment that's needed to run such a organoid sustainably. That's the big challenge in science at the moment. It lasts for several months. Normally, those organoids die pretty soon, between days and weeks. So they have invented this technology with a very, very thin layer of a matrix. It's horrible that we can't hear it. But, sorry? But I can't say ding. What happens here is they grow the cells and connect the cells to this very, very thin mesh that they have created. It grows on that mesh. You'll see it in a minute. And by this, they have the capability to send signals into the brain cells of Alvin Lucier and read the answer of the cells on the other side. So what they did, they put a microphone in the hall. The microphone is reacting to all this acoustic input coming from this brass, whatever, plates. But also the audience. Somebody goes, will be recorded by the microphone and put into, here you see it, that's the actual brain that ran this show. That's the actual organoid that ran the show. And all of a sudden, Alvin Lucier is back in this concept that he always has worked on, his brain causing signals to run audio in a hall and listen to the echo effects that stumble through the hall. The question that this piece raises here is there intelligence outside of the human body? Is there intelligence outside of artificial intelligence? They call it in vitro intelligence. It's not a human, but it's not technology needed. It's a biological organ. The DNA is identical, DNA of each and every cell, and also the function of each and every cell. It is a brain cell of Alvin Lucier, still playing his music, even though that Alvin Lucier has died in 2021. So the good news for artists is there is at least creativity after death. I think this is an extremely strong example of what we need to be prepared for, what kind of future is out there. It's very speculative, of course, but it raises the fundamental question of life after death. It raises the fundamental question if at all it is possible to keep the essence of the concept of Alvin Lucier not only alive, but still functional working. The artists don't have the answer. I don't have the answer. Science, sooner or later, might have, since science creates knowledge, technology creates possibility. Design creates accessibility. But it's only art that creates meaning. Thank you very much.
So, to me, accessibility is really important, and we're talking about two sectors, art and technology, which are perhaps two of the most inaccessible sectors, at least in India, because people often feel that curators are curating for themselves or for each other and not for the audience. And tech is something that they feel they simply don't know too much about. In fact, someone's telling me, why do I have to book tickets online? Can I not just come there at the point and buy one? So I'm really interested in how you made Linz very accessible to people. How do you break down complex structures and ideas into things that are accessible for people? And how do we make these kind of festivals accessible?
Well, I think that there's, of course, and we are very grateful for that, a long tradition on the festival since '79. So in the first 15 years, Linz has established as the international kind of go-to place for art and science, art and tech. People who are interested in media art, and so, even though the term wasn't invented yet. Crazy people, one could say, that's the good description, who wouldn't have found a home in the classic art and wouldn't find a home in technology or science, they met there. And the most important or the interesting thing is, as you don't have a clear defined target group, as somebody who has no home, you're talking to everybody, because potentially that could be my target group, right? So they, from the very beginning, those artists coming to Linz, they were eager to talk to each and everybody. Whoever was interested was highly welcome. And that grew over the time, I think, out of the community that came to Linz. And then even more people came to Ars Electronica, especially also to the festival, local people, because of the accessibility of the museum. So the museum contributed a strong part of it in order to discuss the same topics as we discussed at the festival, but with the people from the street, the visitors who come in. And we talk about AI. We talk about the robotics, mechatronics. We talk about bioengineering.
Yes.
We have Linz, the Ars Electronica Center, is the only S1 certified bioengineering laboratory that's publicly accessible. So you can come and decode your own DNA workshop in the laboratory. That is the only one in the world. Nobody did it yet. And we do this since 2009. So people in Linz know what it takes to decode your own DNA.
Oh, that's amazing.
And even now we have created the scissor, the DNA scissor, where people also in workshops can work with a DNA scissor and create new brands of DNA. We do this with bacteria that start to glow and all kinds of different things that are safe enough. That are and ethically possible, that are made available just to have the experience with it. And it's not the case that when you walk through to the AI exhibition that you then could program your own AI. No. But what we try to achieve is by giving certain insights into the technology, With CNN, that would be one installation where when you come to the installation, there's a camera, there's a little stage, you have different objects that you put in front of the camera, and the camera is the eye of the CNN framework. And there's 11 displays in front of you, and each of the displays shows a layer of the neural network. And you can see the thinking process of that neural network layer by layer by layer. It doesn't explain too much, but it gives you the experience on how fascinating those filters work. At the very beginning, in the first layers, you can still see the image. In the last layer, it's just a cloud of pixels.
My gosh.
And that cloud of pixels is necessary to calculate the probability. So what you have is a probability machine, just saying you, I think that I see an elephant to 90%, but to 89% it could be
a lion.
You know, kind of.
Okay.
This impression to see the entire process and these crazy outcomes, it's just a question of a few percentages that something is something. If we work with ChatGPT, if we work with those environments on AI, generative environment, we only see the outcome. But we can't see the process that's in between. And we can't follow through how this decision is found. But understanding that this decision is just statistics helps the visitors at least to say, in my opinion, this is not what I want, or in my opinion, this is a great opportunity. They can build their own idea about the technology
by looking at it.
By this experience.
Yeah. Okay, I'm convinced. I'm coming. Okay, so you have advocated actually to decrease the gap between the digital world and the real world, because it helps to create co-immersive spaces where people can be much more collaborative. But you remember this film Inception, where Leonardo DiCaprio was the thief who stole corporate ideas using this dream technology. And one of the most terrifying things in that film for me was that the characters were not able to distinguish sometimes between the real and the virtual world. So I really want you to unpack for us what are the positive outcomes of desegregation.
I don't think that there's a huge difference. Let's put it that way. I think it's economical valuable if people think there is a huge difference, because that allows you to do things that you would not do in the real space. And I think there is no difference. We are humans meeting in wherever, in the electronic space. And as we are meeting here, talking to each other, we are just told it's different. We're just told it's different rules that happen in the virtual space. It's not true. It's the rules are to be made. That is what I meant with digital humanity.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that the values that we value are respected. In the real world, we have everything that we need. We have the rules and regulations, we have the police, we have everything that is needed to keep that up. In the digital world, pretty much everything of that.
Okay. I've been reading up on some of the things you've said, and despite this incredible organoid that we were talking about, you were also talking about how artists of the present are limited in their imagination of the future by present contexts. Whereas we've seen so many examples of artists in the past who have laid the prototypes or the foundations for inventions that are part of our present world. And I was really thrilled to see you bring up Leonardo da Vinci, because I was just looking at all the things that he had done in terms of studying of light and the flow of water, currents, and especially his stage design and theatrical effects, which led to the, as you pointed out, the flying machines of today, of the people. So what are the factors that really limit this artistic, the ability to dream or to imagine the future as compared to our innovators of the past? What are the factors that are doing that today?
It's hard to say, but what I would, if we compare just shortly, because that's totally unfair. Da Vinci and his time with the time that we are living in. At times of Da Vinci, a scientist was an artist, was a poet, was a, I don't know. That's why it is called university, because it's a universal character skills that we need or want to create. And that is breaking down in different disciplines. And I'm totally, undoubtable, we need science and we need the expertise. We need to go to the point, we need to find the truth. No doubt about that. But what's also needed is a holistic perspective on the challenges that are global. Because, all of us would agree to the sentence that we need everybody in the boat. Not a single scientist would solve the challenge. That's, everybody.
The idea of being transdisciplinary, right?
Sorry?
Transdisciplinary, the idea.
Transdisciplinary is the word that I'm running for. Yes, we need to overcome the borders of the disciplines. Why is there no, at least a postdoc program somewhere in the world that would teach an art historian to talk to a mathematician and to talk to a theoretical physicist and to talk to an artist, to talk to other disciplines and vice versa? This is just not happening. Well, it is happening on some, depending on the persons, but in the system, this is not foreseen. And there was a very radical statement, I think it was Ariel Miller yesterday saying, the education, or schools, he said, right? Schools needs to be banned anyway. He doesn't trust in the schools anymore. I think he has a point on that. And this, if tackle the big challenges, then we have to make it possible. Then we have to arrange systems that allow for that.
This concerns an interesting notion that you floated earlier on in your presentation. And it is this contrast between a democratic digital humanism and what I'll term here technologism. What I mean is, digital humanism wants to show us the stars, wants to show us how nebulae look like, how galaxies look like, and technologism is like, let's colonize Mars. Digital humanism is, in my view, educational as opposed to extractive, cooperative as opposed to coercive. And I think that And I think that digital humanism as a vision for the future is something I would trust rather than technologism. And a lot of the anxiety about art seems to be that technologism is winning. Why is that the case? Why does it seem to rule the news cycle and the vision for the future?
If I would have the right answer, I probably would get the Nobel Prize for it. That is a fantastic question. Thank you for that. But that incorporates also the challenge. The reason is that we are at a stage where we did not find, let's put it that way, another concept aside to capitalism, another concept that would drive the world. This concept is not necessarily, breaking down the capitalism. This concept would only be, as a lot of economists say, it's stupid to for a capitalist to create bad working conditions and pay low money because the development of his employees would not allow to buy bigger projects, bigger products. So it's actually, and a study recently has shown that this is even true for the Manchester liberalism back then in England with the waiting stools and stuff. They increased the income of the working class not because they are so nice people, but because they saw that they then can purchase
buy the products that you're creating.
the products that they create, and they can even grow with it. And that is the logistics of the capitalism. So capitalism per se isn't a bad thing. It brought all the wonders that we see up to the point. The question is, how do we interpret it? Where does the wealth go? Does it end up, and at the moment it looks like, in the pockets of a few, or does it support the entire communities? If that would be the case, we easily would have been started decades already ago to change the schooling system. Because the schooling system is, as shown yesterday by Regelmüller, schooling system is derived from the industrial age, from the industrialization era, creating pupils who are then sent to work, being in time, working 8 to 12 hours. But a schooling system that we would need now is having people playing with things, having people having pupils increasing their Neugier, their curiosity, helping them to discover the world as they do from day on up until the age of 6 when they are sent to school. In this time, a fantastic development, any AI comparison, any AI training session would lose miles against the first few years of a kid. What kids do, and that's also, no, I'm blah, 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 sorry, I need to calm down again. But if we would have already thought about not starting at the problem at the top, but creating environments that would allow accessibility to technologies, would allow accessibility to the arts, would allow accessibility for everybody to increase his or her own curiosity, his or her own creativity. I think many of the problems would be potentially solved from ground up. I see the danger that actually we are living a time where the pressure against comes from top down because they don't want.
There you go. Okay.
Thank you very much for this very illuminating presentation. Now, as a public health professional, I was especially interested in the models of the human body that you showed. And as you said, you're right, digital transformation enables so many things like getting AI mammograms and all that. But my concern has been, that such technologies still remain in the preserve of the privileged. And as someone who's seen health systems up close, especially in countries like ours that are overburdened and serve the marginalized but not in the best possible way, how can we make sure that technology really serves the people that it's supposed to serve? Thank you.
I think also now art pieces, I think that arts or the artists have in the one or the other opportunity really shown ways how to do this. I remember, and I forgot the name of the artist, that's why I'm stumbling around. I remember an artist who won the Golden Mica several years ago. He did a 3D printer based on sunlight that would utilize sand of the Sahara to be melted to a degree where it would connect the single stones to it as a 3D print. A fantastic, I mean, crazy engine, of course, way miles from a product, but nevertheless, an approach, a vision that just needed to be done. But what came out of it was that he started, after this one, he started to create self-built 3D printers and worked in, and I think it was Botswana, worked with disabled people, people who are missing a limb.
A limb, yeah.
And built with them, they built their own limbs and 3D printed it, and then, you know, tried it and didn't work, so we built a new one. And all of a sudden, this supply of, you know, for walking, for grabbing, these supplies were accessible. And he left all the gear and the trained people, and they invited the neighborhood village and so on and so on. And it really grew a lot. So there are a lot of those. They are very, very small, I know, initiatives, but there are a lot that overcome. And I'm really not overseeing everything that is happening, but I know it's happening. And this is also why I
Yeah.
and it's so many of us who can participate in that.
Yeah.
And that is actually happening. That's not a dream. That is already reality.
Yeah, you know, I went into the media labs in MIT, and there they were working on a kind of device that they could take into villages to check if people had cataract or not, and how they could. So so that was simple. It was inexpensive, and the students were working on that project. So I think there are people who are doing things, and I hope just the scope of it widens. But
there's another example that comes to my mind now. Didi Offenhuber in Boston. He, with friends of his in the COVID hardcore time, all the hospitals had problem with getting the breathing apparatus for the too many patients. And he and his friend built up a 3D printed breathing apparatus and printed, I think he himself printed hundreds of, and sent it out to the hospitals. It was, of course, not working as, you know, the high quality equipment, but at least there was something to be given out. Or another one with Zachary Lieberman and his crew. He was working for, there was a graffiti artist in New York, and he fell off the walls, and he was totally paralyzed afterwards. And they visited him with friends. They visited him, and Zach was with him. And he said the only thing that he really suffers from is that he can't paint anymore. Well, is to understand. What then the friends did was, that was on very early stage at MIT, they tried to find the eye tracking technology. You know, the eye tracking, now it's you know, available everywhere. That was back in 2005, I think. And they got hold of one, and they put him into a next room in this hospital, where he could see a wall, a firewall on the other side. And they purchased a projector, having the projector on the wall, and put this glass to him. And he was able to paint with the movement of his eyes on the wall on the opposite of the street. These things are happening. People are joining up when they know each other, when they know about the challenge. So it's also very important that we speak out about the challenges that we feel. If we feel not informed enough about anything, speak up. Somebody will hear it, and somebody will join in. I think it's, and since, as I said, this is already happening, I think the world is moving towards the better, even if it looks not that way. I guarantee you, almost, it's getting better.
Well, thank you, Horst, for showing us an exciting world out there over the last hour. And I'd like to thank all of you for joining us, for being a part of this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you.